So here's a story. Comes out of Denver. It's Demetrious Wilson. So R.I.P. to Demetrious Wilson. He's a 8-year-old kid who got beat up at home. He got beat up until he was killed. Just like Emily Canales. R.I.P. to Emily Canales. R.I.P. to Demetrious Wilson. Looks like he's got a smile that could light up a Christmas tree. A smile that could light up the world. So let's go ahead and read about what happened. This comes from 9news.com. June 3rd, 2022, 8-year-old Dametrious Wilson was found dead, and his great aunt Susan Baffour was charged with this murder. In Colorado, there's like 6 or 7 homicide charges. You can't do vehicular homicide, no first-degree murder, which is deliberate. You can't plan it out beforehand. No second-degree murder, which is knowingly shooting a person. Negligent, manslaughter, vehicular. And then there's a couple other ones, like real specific ones, but you can't shoot an EMS worker. Like, you can't shoot anybody in general, but if you shoot an EMS worker, a police officer, or a firefighter, that's also an extra charge. It's a class 1 felony. And then also, if you beat a child to death. I feel like I've reported on this same damn story like maybe 5 or 6 times already. Emily Canales, like I said, 5-year-old Emily Canales. The mother said she just smacked her 3 times in the bathroom, and then I guess that knocked her block off, huh? Twisted her neck, cracked it. Now she's dead. That deserves... You beat a kid to death? In June, Denver police responded to an apartment for a call about a child who was unresponsive. That child, 8-year-old Demetrious Wilson, died from his injuries, and since his death, 9 News has been looking into the circumstances. Susan Baffour, Demetrious' great aunt, had called 911 to report that the boy wasn't breathing. June 3rd, 2022. They responded to their apartment in 1900 block of Ulster Street around 8:20 a.m. Susan told police she spanked Demetrious the night before, and she's been arrested, and she faces charges of first-degree murder and child abuse in connection to his death. She's next due in court for an arraignment on December 9th. For months, 9 News has been working to learn if something could have been done to prevent the death of this little boy. We've found one person who tried whenever Demetrious would attend school. Schools are meant to be a safe haven, a refuge for children who are not safe at home. Reed Gibson aims to provide that safe space at Ashley Elementary, particularly in Classroom 209. I love it. It's a great place. It's really a family, Gibson said. In her room, she teaches her second graders to be terrific second graders that once included Demetrious Wilson. He was the sweetest little boy. He had this huge smile on his face. Every day he'd come running in through the little fence and he would say, "Miss Gibson, hi." Gibson said with excitement. Gibson also taught Demetrious' big sister, Noelle White, who is now in the 4th grade. She's also an angel. Multiple times I told her, "You're always just on task, ready to go." She was always doing her work. She was wanting to help others, be a leader. All the other kids in the classroom knew that and looked to her when things were going on. They both were such great kids, and I feel lucky to have been a teacher for them. This year in room 209, Demetrius' smile and spirit remain. It was the first thing I put up because they put the photo of his face. Just looking at his face and seeing that smile and that grin, I mean, that's the smile that he had every day, all day. Even after his life was cut short. It's something you never want to see ever, and especially for a child who's 8 years old, who still had so much left to give and was just taken way too early. He's forever young. There are offices in the state of Colorado that strive to protect children to the best of their ability. Children are unable to protect themselves physically and emotionally, even verbally, said Colorado Child Protection Ombudsman Stephanie Villafuerte. Villafuerte and her office are often challenged with investigating concerns regarding children. They may not have the skills they need to say, "I need help." So the idea is that these professionals in their life take over this responsibility for them. Villafuerte said. A mandatory reporter is a professional that holds that responsibility. Certain professions require their staff and employees to report child abuse or neglect to the Department of Human Services. That includes teachers, like Miss Gibson. I don't even know if I can make a count of how many I've done, said Gibson about mandatory reports she made. When asked if it was more than a dozen or less than that, she responded, more than a dozen. It's her 5th year as a teacher. DHS was involved in Dametrious' life from the start. In March 2014, he was born with marijuana in his system. The hospital contacted Denver Human Services. Over the years, DHS investigated 4 other reports regarding Dametrious and his older sister, Noelle. That includes a February 2017 incident when DHS removed the children from their mother's home and placed them in the custody of their great-aunt, Susan Baffour. Susan was cleared by Human Services for kinship placement after background checks were completed. However, legal custody belonged to DHS until Susan Baffour was granted parental rights in October 2017. Permanent placement for Dametrious and his sister Noelle had to take place within a year of the removal from their home due to their ages. It was a decision Dametrious' family thought was the right one. At first, it started out okay, said his aunt Candace White. I had him like every other weekend, and his dad, Anthony Wilson. And then it just stopped. White noticed the changes too. I couldn't hardly make a phone call to them without there being an excuse, she said. If they were planning on coming over Saturday, it got canceled at the last minute. I kind of wondered why he wasn't coming around, said Anthony Wilson, and it bothered me. I don't know. I thought Susan Baffour just kept them away. COVID quickly created more isolation from their family, but Dametrious and his sister still attended school online. I think as a teacher, people say, wow, you really have an impact on these kids. You hang out with them a lot, but you're with that child for 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, Gibson said. In October 2020, Gibson first became concerned for the kids' well-being. Noelle had a cute little skirt and tights on, and she came back, didn't say anything to me, but she had ripped her tights in the bathroom while she was pulling them up, and she went home. Susan saw that they were ripped, and she came back the next day, and she said, I got grounded because my aunt said that I took scissors into the bathroom and cut my tights, Gibson said. Then Noelle began to open up even more when she realized Gibson cared. That's when she broke down and kind of said, I don't want to go home. I don't like it there. I want to stay here. And that's why I made the report to DHS, Gibson said. Gibson filed a report with DHS. We found her report was screened out after DHS determined it didn't fit the criteria to launch an investigation. Another red flag came nearly a year later. Susan had emailed asking if we could put him, Dametrious, on remote learning, and we told her that wasn't an option. And that was another time that we made a call because it wasn't right that she was trying to keep him out of school for 2 weeks, Gibson said. Susan Baffour's reasoning to keep him home was punishment according to the school. In September 2021, the school attendance secretary called the Denver Public Schools Department of Safety to conduct a welfare check at their home. Susan Baffour never answered the door, and DHS was never contacted. The issue with mandatory reporting is it's designed to serve as an alert system. We have a child who is in peril, and we need someone to go look at his home. Check this out. When this doesn't happen, we do run the risk of children left in harm's way. Villafuerte, the Colorado Child Protection Ombudsman, said, under current law, DHS is not required to follow up with the family once a caregiver is granted parental responsibility. The last time DHS made contact with Noelle and Dametrious was in 2017, not even a year after their placement with Susan Baffour. 9 News showed Gibson the documents related to Dametrious and the 5-year gap between when Susan Baffour was granted parental rights and his death. I mean, I don't know how DHS works, and I don't know what that process is, but you would think there would be some follow-up after they've been placed in her custody to make sure everything's okay, she said in response. The silence showed Gibson was speechless and heartbroken too. How do we get more youth to really be seen and heard by all the professionals designed to help them, Villafuerte asked rhetorically. Professionals like Gibson, who believes DHS needs to do a better job. I mean, there are some days to me where I'm like, is it even worth me reporting anymore? Because obviously I will. I'm a mandatory reporter. I'm not going to not, but like, it just makes you lose a lot of hope in the system when you have something like this happen, Gibson said. 296 pages. 5-year gap. DHS. Demetrious, not currently aware. Bob Wolf, Denver City Attorney, Human Services. He said, finally, let me once again apologize for our failure to initially provide complete documentation to the father, then our mistake in representing to you that we, in fact, had made a complete response. It was not our finest hour, and we have taken steps to ensure that such occurrences do not happen again. If you have any information about this story or another story idea, email 9news. So RIP to Dametrious Wilson. 8-year-old Dametrious Wilson didn't deserve to get hit until he died. Here's Susan Baffour.